So welcome everyone. I'm Agustina Jaime from McNeil Europe. Today we are thrilled to have Anna Bridgewater join us the webinar. Anna will share her innovative process for creating sustainable decorative lamps that are both visually appealing and functional. These lamps are crafted from repurposed hardwood and ceramics, showcasing Anna's commitment to sustainability. So Anna, as renowned designer and sculptor, has been working with porcelain since 2004. Based in London since 2015, she has gained international recognition for her sustainable designs inspired by nature, particularly sea creatures like corals and diatoms. So feel free to use the chat for any questions during the webinar, and I will collect them. And at the end, we will have 50 minutes of a Q&A session with Anna. So welcome, Anna. Thank you for being here. And whenever you're ready, you can start.
Thank you, Agustina, for having me today. And thank you all the team behind you as well. My name is Anna, and well, I'm going to share a very brief presentation, and I'm very happy to answer any of your questions at the end. Well, the webinar is called Between the Digital and the Sculptural, and this is a title that I chose to present my work to you, but the origin comes from my university, and it was one of the lectures that was given in University of Bilbao by Nino Barriuso, a Spanish sculptor, and so it's an homage also to him. That's my teacher and mentor in sculpture. So, well, combining materials and technology is what I do mainly, and well, I come back mainly from the sculptural background, and in sculpture, the way I've been trained is mainly in materials that are clay and plaster mainly. So it's very tactile, and well, I'm going to start the presentation and I will show you. So today I'm going to be speaking about my last design, which is this one that you have on the screen. It's called Wave, and well, I will introduce you a little bit, how I come to get this done from the sketch to the final design. And mainly, I'm going to start now in a really short presentation about myself, so you understand a little bit where I come from, and then I'll come to this. In the screen, we see, one of my first sketches. I tend to draw, but not that you can put it into a frame. Just mainly like black and white lines, ideas, proportions, and well, numbers, because there's a lot of mathematics behind it as well. So, well, I come from the making world. I started in 2015 my own sustainable company, which I was making candles and refills, and in the left I am in the studio making some of the vases, and in the right is one of the examples of one of my lamps made out of industrial waste that I welded, put together, and use my own material, my own porcelain material to create the shade. And obviously, you can see more in my Instagram, which is Avalon UK. Very briefly, I came across creating my own material inspired by nature, especially the animals in the sea. I found this material to be very versatile, as it maximizes the volume, creates lightness, and is very translucent. And I like that structure porosity that is achieved when you put a light source inside the sculpture or the piece that I'm making. I did the first test in University of Arts. And well, here is a little bit of my curriculum. You don't need to know much. Just that, I did a study in Bilbao, in Barcelona. I studied my PhD. I did philosophy as well, and an MFA in Natural Arts. And then I ended in Goldsmiths doing computational arts. And yeah, that's more or less briefing my curriculum, which ends in more or less 20 exhibitions around the world. Well, my artistic inspiration is mainly of sculpture. And here are some of the names that I'm inspired by, like Luisa Bourgeois, Cole, Barbara Hepworth, Holzer, Horn, Krauss, Mendieta, Rist, Michelangelo Rodin, Henry Moore, of course, Jorge Oteiza, Nestor Basterrechea, Turnoviti, and well, as a contemporary sculpture, I like a lot Conrad Sam Cross. You can see some of his sculptures in London, and I do think he's quite versatile, and he's using also parametrics to design his own sculptures. This is some of the exhibitions that I did. In this particular case, I use a processing program to generate a random graphic, which then I was printing in glaze and transferring it into porcelain. And it was to create these 10 limited discs to hang in the walls. And this was done in 2014. And at that time, I was a student in Goldsmiths. This is also some of my last exhibitions. I was elected the Spanish representative in London Craft Week in 2021. This is also another exhibition that I did here in London with the broken vases. I do create other sculptures, and in this case, I call it one again because I do use the kintsugi technique in my own way. I put back the porcelain into the kiln and I glaze it, and then I finish it with precious metals like it's gold or platinum. This is also the inaugural exhibition at the Forge is studios at south of London. And this is an example of one of my sculptures, which is 40 centimeters diameter vase, but it's like it's round, so it's always moving. And well, for the ones that you don't know, this is a very brief information about what is diatoms and what is my inspiration to create these sculptures. You can see more in my website. And again, it's avalonuk.com. And by the end, you will have a QR that it will just link you to this website. So, well, diatoms, for the ones that you don't know, are found in most of the waters. And they are very important. They create oxygen, and well, it's very important for our ecosystem. And well, this is a brief, and with this I think I'm finishing, about myself. Is a documentary that was done by Bahit Kesvaraf, and it has my name, and it's a brief story of how I am making in London. And he was awarded the Best London Short Film in 2018. And the Barcelona Best Short Documentary in 2019. And for once, if you want to Google it, just put Avalon documentary and it will come. And well, this is my last exhibition, which I was exhibiting last week in Clerkenwell Design Week, which was wonderful. In light exhibition in the jail in Clerkenwell. And it was very, very great for me to see how many people just sent me a lot of, how do you say it in English, sorry, messages of encouraging to continue making in the way I'm making. And well, my next exhibition will be also in September during London Design Week. I've been supported by Grant Gibson, who is a podcast in Material Matters, and they're organizing this wonderful exhibition about materials. And I'm going to be mainly exhibiting my porous porcelain. And here is where I start expressing, how I make and how I come to from my sketch to the design. This is the simplest case I could show. I have 2 models of my collection done this way. It's a simple drawing, and what I do is here actually. It's not very big. It's 3D printed. It has a little bit of edge, but what I use is the weight and temperature of porcelain to get it way more open. So I work with the material in a craft way, understanding its properties, obviously after having it test many times in the kiln, and I know how more of this is going to react. So I could design something simple and then work with it as it's a normal sculpture. So in this case, I will do a mold in plaster, and then I will work with the porcelain, hand building it inside the mold, and then I will have the shade. And this is one of the cases. It's a black porcelain with gold inside, and it gives a beautiful glow when it's on. And again, it's very simple approach. This is another design that I came across. It was not a design actually. This was a mistake of the printer, and I found it so lovely that I did the mold, and then I use it for making candles, which is the one in the repurposed, in the one in the photograph that you have in the left. Is a marble effect that with light is very beautiful, and that's how I started making my own candles. Although this is an application for a wall lamp that I have designed, patented, and all the elements and all the design is made by me. So it's a finalized product that you can find on my website. In the right, again, I use the same mold, but in this case, I use a hand-built method in the porcelain with a porosity, and then I put it into this lovely lamp that is a Lomas furniture design, which I collaborate with, and we create these designs for the purpose mainly of decoration and decorative lighting. The page on these both pages are part of the catalog that you will find on my website. And well, talking about combining materials and technology. So this was my first exercise in Grasshopper. I done Grasshopper before, but the time is limited, and when you're making, honestly, there's so much going on that indeed there's a little bit of limitation of what I can do. So well, this was a very simple algorithm that it was just basically creating a loft, and it was just generating waves so I could visualize a pattern. And from this little algorithm, what I did is just stop it at several points and do screenshots of it. So I'll show you. So this is a little bit of the video. So from all those patterns, what I do is just select the ones that I found very interesting, and then I could have the design in 3D and cut it and evolve it differently as a normal design. So from this, for example, shape, I could have not only just one design, but multiple ideas coming from it. And I think this is something that, you know, from the context of coming from sculpture and having so much going on with technology, I think is interesting, because my intention wasn't to create a very complex algorithm. My intention was to create an object, and I have the materials that I was going to make those designs in my head. So I'm very limited in what I can create. So that makes it obviously more and more simple. I think this idea of having first an intention when you start into design before you start opening any program is very, very good. Also, obviously, drawing and sketching ideas freehand will be also very, very useful. So from this idea, I came with this design that I want to create into water feature. And then I created a very simple design for my studio leg. So nice sitting down where I'm sitting, which is lovely. And again, all comes from inspiration of combining this technology with my visualization and what I want to create with that material, and obviously budget. Well, this is my last design. I'm working with Memories of Green. He works in Copy Arts, Deford, and he turns wood. So for this design, I wanted to obviously, you know, my inspiration was the reefs and the corals, and I wanted to express a wave, a sound, SOS message. So for this design, I used Rhino in many different ways. First to create the plans, and then for the visualization of the final piece. This is just the lamp. I'm still in the process of creating the shade. So I don't know if you can still in prototype stage. The second attempt, probably I might go to the third, but these processes are long. And again, my first sketches were dated from January, and we're almost in June, and the piece is finished, but it's not yet. The limited edition still on wait, hopefully ready for September. Again, coming to the sketch and the visualization of material into an object, and how to have that design finished it takes time. And I do think that, you know, for me, creating an object is not just a functional, but it has to be aesthetically beautiful. And well, we all have different tastes, but for me, this is a very calming object to have nearby, and with a glow, it just simply looks beautiful. You have, you know, less in your house, but these items could just enhance your well-being and make your house more beautiful, and also is culturally relevant. Well, here is the QR that if you scan it, it will just go directly to photographs of my last catalog that I presented in Gleckenwell Design Week, which was last week. And again, well, you know, this is a little bit of a brief of how my ideas are born. But in the making, yeah, there's never like a perfect process. Although I use a lot Bruno Munaris, which is well, he was an Italian designer, and he has processes, structurally processes for you to follow and create your own designs. Again, everyone has its own ways. And well, just to finish a little bit with this short brief presentation, I use Rhino in this case, because I found it very versatile and very intuitive. With just a couple of features, you can visualize and create very fast designs. Also, again, you can export it into many different formats and use printers or other machinery to manufacture your designs, which I found very interesting. And again, how and when I use it, well, again, mainly for visualizing designs, which I found very fast, and I haven't found yet another way that is as fast as as technical as this program. And well, now I think I'm going to try and use it more for Grasshopper and create more complex designs in the future. So yep, that's mainly my approach, and I'm very happy to answer and open this panel for questions.
I have some questions if you want, but I have first a comment from Tran. And this is that this sculptor's modeling is not a simple job, but the harder job is how can people make that real objects from the 3D objects. I'm curious about this process, which, I mean, you've explained a little bit. And then I have Stan Carroll says, can you explain in more detail how the porosity is created?
Yeah. So coming from the first question, could you clarify what is it doesn't understand?
So it says this sculptor's modeling is not a simple job, but the harder job is how can people make that real objects from the 3D objects? Okay,
I see. I mean, to create in 3D, I used usually little models. For this lamp, I already was working with wood turners, and I had some bits and pieces around. So for me, it was just useful to get the drill and drill a hole, create some balls, and start playing with the wave. And I saw, that just making it that way works. Then it's just, I don't know, every design is very different actually, but I will sometimes use clay as a raw material directly as it is. Sometimes I will use plaster as a sketch. It's very easy. Sometimes I will use not powder plaster, but the plaster of the doctors is very cheap to buy, and you can use it, it's quite like a cloth textile. You just put it in water, and with a simple structure, you can just start building. Plasticine, it's kind of a very simple approach. Get some modeling tools and start playing. And well, for the porosity, so I work with very different approaches. In my early presentation, there's a little evolution panel here, down here. The first one is done, you will laugh, but it's done with Coca-Cola and porcelain. So I mix Coca-Cola and porcelain, and I start playing with molds, and then I sand, and the bubbles start showing. So when you are using liquid porcelain into a plaster mold, what is happening is the porcelain is being absorbed, the humidity, through that porous plaster, and there's like a wall starting to be created, and that bubbles effervescence is getting is getting it into those size. So then I process that and I create this texture, which is beautiful. The second one was done with polystyrene, and that was awful, because what happened is that my teacher used to tell me, Anna, have you already put one of your sculptures in when with all my other firings, and it was just creating smoke. So I changed to a green compound that makes no smoke, and it solidifies. And then what I do is, again, sand the texture. Let me get a sample. So I sand this texture so it's smooth, and then you can see it through. I don't know if that will answer your question.
I think it definitely did, at least for me, that I was curious about it too. I have Diana that she asked, do you use Rhino to test the textures and materials effect, or you only use Rhino to control the main shape and the visualization, as you explained?
So again, this is the in-between the digital and the sculptural. I'm combining materials to ideas that I'm sketching with technology, but it will never be the same. My background is mainly materials, so I know very well how that material is going to work and how I could push it. And this comes only by experimenting and test and error. I've been doing it for 20 years, and I'm still very surprised at how many mistakes I could get with this material. So to answer that question, yeah, again, it's complicated because my approach is a bit more open-minded and let material also do their job and talk. Because if you force material, what you get is frustrated. So I'm not working with high engineer. I mean, again, if you are going to travel and you go to a plane and someone in the design team is telling you this, you better don't get onto that plane. But with pieces that are just not just functional, that are artistic and that aesthetic, that you're looking is intriguing, is part of that material that you're using. You need to allow that material to flow. So there will be some errors that you will find beautiful, and you will see, maybe some of your ideas won't be perfect, but they will be talking what process you've been doing in that material. I don't know if that answers.
So let's say it's not like a linear workflow, but obviously it comes and goes, the use of Rhino, not only in one part of the workflow, but I guess it's to validate certain stage and then come back to Rhino to change it and
yes,
to ask the questions, test the textures. I think it's more about how you feel with the texture and the materials itself, and then come and go back to Rhino, right?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Perfect. Yeah. So I also have
like loops. It depends on your design, but the beauty is that you can combine. You first start drawing, and then you just go to Rhino and do a 3D design, and then you can print it. And then you're not happy with the printer, so you will just create a mold and test it, and then you go back to Rhino, and it's a flow of creating that design that is going to be born.
Right. I also have John Colby that is curious, I guess, about the digitalization in the work flow. And he asked, I think it's interesting how you use Grasshopper to create inspiration and direction for sculptor. And he asked, how did you get started with Grasshopper, as he doesn't use Grasshopper currently?
So how I just tapped Grasshopper in Rhino, and that was it. I just played with the first exercises, just follow the instructions, and then you can start, changing parameters, changing shapes, and again, be very, very focused in your intention, or what is what you want to achieve, or what is what you want to see on that algorithm. Because if you get too diffused, you will end doing many different things, but you won't visualize. And the idea is that you are getting inspirational out of it as well. That's the main idea. And stay with it. Sometimes parametrics is a very fast visualization, and we're not machines, we're not processors. We don't process as fast as this incredible artificial intelligence. Our brains operates very differently. So what you do is just take your time. Maybe do 1 hour one day and 1 hour the next day, but keep consistency, and do not do too do not force the process, because creativity is magical, but it doesn't work 8 hours a day.
Right. So Tran asked, so the real objects cannot be exactly 100% as the 3D objects, which is related to what you were explaining.
Yeah, sorry, say it again. I was just reading.
So the real objects cannot be exactly 100% as a 3D object.
Yes, correct. You can force that. You can get something that is very similar. I went to a 3D clay printing lab recently, and they look much more like a computer generated design. I do think that if that's what your intention is, perfect. Go ahead. You can just use a completely machine process. My intention is to create a soul into that piece. And as a sculptress, I pay a lot of attention to human texture through the tools that I'm using, through the processes, and that's my personal intention. But again, if your intention is to create something 3D design and use completely a mechanical process, it's totally perfect. I mean, nothing wrong on that. Someone is asking, just because I'm the material person, is hi, do you use plaster or gypsum? Yes, I do, all the time. It's there's so many types of plasters and gypsums that you won't believe it. But indeed, this beautiful rock, then some created into powder, and that has this mimetic fever, and just creates something, is very useful. It's very useful for many, 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 many things. And I hope that stays with us for a very long time, because it's not a very toxic material to be using, and it's wonderful. It's cheap. It's cheap. It's increased in price significantly in the last couple of years, but is still affordable. And if you want to ask me anything, Leonardo, I'm happy to send me an email or something, and I'm happy to answer where you can get those materials.
I have another question of Matthew. Do you use digital prototyping to make your plaster mold?
No. I was experimenting with I've done digital molds for other purposes, but not for the porcelain. I used digital molding for silicon cast, which is if you want to do a big series, you need a mother mold, which is usually done in silicon, and that is kept forever and ever and ever. But I try not to use this material because it's not very sustainable, and it you cannot recycle it. So for these processes of ceramic, I think we are much better to use normal plaster, just your hands, and and a simple, clay box or any structure. Even a box will do. Just pour it there, and your design is fitted on the bottom, and you can create it. I mean, we can do a workshop one day in plaster molding. I'm super happy to do that.
Yeah, I guess we can do a little workshop or even online about it. I have Max that asked a similar question. Could you explain how you make your molds, silicone, plaster, etc.?
Just to explain it as briefly, with no sketching, like I could do a little bit of sketch, but like, for example, like this is the design, right? So you need to glue it or somehow structurally get it solid to a base. It will be completely empty. So what you do is build a wall around it. Could be cardboard, could be a box, could be anything that will just fill the height of it. And then you create the gypsum with water in a pot, and then you start pouring it. I will include a little bit that each of the surfaces, it would be good if you have like a soap, a little bit of soap, so it just demolds nicely and you don't break it, because the idea is that you can keep the prototype for another time. And through the printing, sometimes if you print very thin like me, they tend to break quite easily. And plaster is kind of a very strong material, and also you don't want to break the plaster when you are removing the prototype. So again, there are millions of YouTube videos showing you how to create a simple cast mold. Honestly, I would invite you to try it. It could be a little bit messy in the first time, but then promise you first, the second, the third time, you will get much more used to this process, and it's very simple. And you can achieve a lot of things in ceramics with a very small budget.
I have David get also that asked, did you mold Cinderella's shoes in Rhino?
No. These were a floating shoes, and it was an homage to woman aesthetic, and basically didn't work because they sunk to the floor. But this was sculpted as a stone. I created a block, and then I like chiseled it.
Wow. Beautiful. I have Matthew Moon again. In all your creative processes, do you try to use only plastic-free materials like hardwood, clay, plaster, gypsum, etc., for sustainable purposes?
Right. Yes, I study very much the processes in order to minimize the amount of waste I'm generating and the impact that waste will have after I use that material. Again, I try to avoid as much any resins, anything that is not recyclable. I don't use. And if, for example, I'm using silicone and that comes to an end, what I do is break down the silicone so I can use it in the body of the next mold as a filler. So you use less new material and more material that was a waste. With plaster, molds last for a very long time. I still have molds that they were from university. They were, 20 years ago. Not fabric, not the ones that are using the fabrics. They tend to sadly dispose them fast, quicker. So that's why also my approach to create my own design studio was to control all the processes, so I could push that material use until the maximum boundary. I don't know why I do it, but I think, first is that nature is my first client, I guess, for everyone. And we need to do our best to help it, because we are part of that nature. And yeah, again, we have a limited amount of materials of use, and yeah, it's our responsibility to look after it.
I mean, definitely your approach is very coherent with aesthetics of your sculptures and your objects. Donna Grace asked if you do limited editions or just one-off.
I tend to do limited editions for the main purpose that when you create one design, is very, the amount of time spent on it is a lot. So if you create a one-off piece, the cost of that piece will be very huge, and it will be very difficult to sell. So I do limited editions mainly for that purpose, for selling it in a more economical way, so I could make a living out of it.
Yeah, that's necessary. I have 2 comments before the next question, which is one from Laurie Robinson. It says, thank you so much. I love how you are combining hand sculpture skills with technology. It's very inspiring. And then David says, who asked the question about Cinderella shoe, says, you find it in the deep of the ocean. And then I have Francesco, which is, have you tried to 3D print the structure and then do a finished casting on top?
Sorry, I don't understand the process. So he's 3D printing the model and then casting it?
And then, yes. So using the 3D model, the 3D printing object to create
yes,
a finishing casting on top.
I work with the surface. I try to avoid, again, sculpting is all about volume, about, the finishes. So the 3D printer leaves a trace of lines that nowadays is not easy to remove when you finalize the product in the machine. So what I do is work with the mold and with a sandpaper, sand it down so it's smooth.
Thank you. And I think this is our last questions. If I missed anyone's question, please feel free to now put it again, because there were so many questions and comments. Everyone seems very interested that I might have missed one. But it's Leonardo Dolfi. First it's Matthew Muin. Have you tried alginate casting for very detailed molding?
Yes. Yeah. Alginate is a wonderful material. It comes from the algae, and it's used for dentist molding. It's very, very detailed if you do it properly. It's perfect. The only thing that alginate and porcelain don't work together. So you need to pass that mold into plaster if your final process is ceramics. You can use with alginate, you can use wax, you can use any melting material that nowadays we have melting plasticines, melting reusable plastic pebbles. There's many options.
You clearly know a lot about the materials. And I have
happy
to be.
Sorry, it would be easier for me to see the case if they send me a picture of what is the problem, and I can just let them know.
Do you have any contact, or in your website there's a contact for them to ask you?
Yes,
directly?
My email is info@avalonuk.com.
I write it in the chat so everyone's have it.
My contact details are on my Instagram or on my website.
So I think this is the last question of Donna Grace. Do you use AI? Question nowadays.
I did use AI for just to test how these visualizations, how my prompts will be looking in the future. They are amazing. I did love it, but I again, my main intention is to focus in who we are, who, you know, how humans are, and there's a huge gap right now. You know what we've been doing and what is happening with this artificial intelligence, and I'm seeing a lot of designers launching collections, incredible collections and super fashion, and like your objects are just unbelievable that everyone will want to have. And I think, how are they going to do that? It's like, so I have stopped artificial intelligence because mainly for that reason. It's just it looks unbelievable, but then it's like I'm going to get mad. Just start thinking how I can create a multiple 1 million piece mold to create this lamp in sculpture, which I think it's very, very, very useful for creatives. Very fun. I do enjoy it a lot. But again, it's that what I really want, or is what the machine is telling me is what I want. That's the key thing. And I'm quite critical with thinking it's like, are we going to all be looking like what the machine thinks is going to be cool, or is it going to be me who decides that is cool? That's sort of idea.
Yes, I think it could be used as a starting point for inspiration more than to base the whole creative process. So I have 2 comments that I would like to share about everyone. I think I will send the chat to Anna so she can get all your messages and feedback. But Leonardo Dolphy says, thank you very much for sharing your ideas and process. Your work is great and has a very warm feeling. I think your seek for inspirational design was successful. And then Matthew Moon says, thank a lot for this webinar, Anna. I love your way how to combine 3D as research with handcraft techniques with your own creativity. Thank you for sharing the experience. And with that, I think we answer all the questions. I hope.
Yeah.
But I agreed a lot. I mean, your objects are beautiful, and
thank you.
I think the way you approach them and the way you approach the process and respect the materials and inspiration and everything is very inspiring. So thank you so much for the presentation and for sharing the way you work and share your work. So hopefully we'll do something else to show everyone more about the workflow and the materials you use, a little workshop or something. But thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone from London.
Bye. Have a good day, everyone.
You too. Lovely day, everyone.